all that. Howie Roseman is using that to this day. You know what? Don't gauge Coach Johnson on the first round picks. Gauge him on the picks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's how he built the Cowboys. He built when he won his first Super Bowl in Dallas. It was the youngest football team in the NFL because you know what he did? Coach Johnson walked right in there. I was there. Randy White, Tom stayed a year, Rafferty. But you know what he told these old guys? Hey, man, this may not be for you. We were in mini camp. No, OTAs. Randy White quit. Like 8 other guys quit because he went, hey, this ain't going to be for me here. And that's how Coach got younger. It was an amazing time to be around. Well, I'll tell you what, I was talking to Michael Irvin last night. Man, the impact that Coach Jimmy Johnson has had on so many thousands of lives that he's coached. And to see him retire, I can't look, Jimmy Johnson and the word retire. Let's bring Coach Johnson up now here. And I don't know about that word. Coach, I don't believe I don't believe the word retire for you, Coach.
Well, Dan, I will have to say I'm not thoroughly retired for the simple reason, like a week ago, we had Wanstead and Troy Aikman and a bunch of guys down, and then I had a couple of coaches come down. And so I still have people coming to the Keys, but I won't be going to Los Angeles to do Fox NFL Sunday. I still talk to Terry Bradshaw, one of my best friends. And, we still communicate. Kurt Menefee just texted me about 5 minutes ago. But I won't be making that trip to LA. That's the number one thing.
Coach, let me ask you a personal question here. I know that you were dear friends with Gene Hackman, and unfortunately all that went down. God rest his soul, rest in peace. I mean, was really a tragedy there. Did that have anything that pushed you into wanting to enjoy the back nine, so to speak, right now, and not anything else? Like maybe it was time that you and Rhonda wanted to have a great time with your family. And did that have anything to do with it?
It's something that you say that because Kurt Menefee asked me the same thing. Maybe it accelerated my retirement, or at least the announcement. The one thing about, Gene and Betsy, they came down a couple of months every year and spent time here. He was such a talented individual. Not only was he a great actor, but, I've got 3 paintings here in my house. He was an artist. He also wrote some books. He was just a pleasure to be around. And of course, he was 95 years old, but Betsy was only 65. And it was just such a shock to hear about both of them passing. But really, I had planned on retiring anyway. It's just that when that did happen, that's when I decided to call Fox and call Eric Shanks and Bill Richards, our producer, and tell them that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and retire. And so we set up the announcement right after that.
Coach, what was more demanding in your life? College, pro, broadcasting? What was the most demanding thing for you during those 3 phases of your career?
Well, I have to gloat a little bit. I'm in the Hall of Fame in all 3 of them. But the most demanding, Dan, was, coaching professional football, because on top of being the coach, I was also the personnel director. And so I was in charge of evaluating talent. As soon as the season was over with, I jumped on a plane and went to the various all-star games. And then also I'd go around to the various colleges and look at players and work out players. And so, being in charge of personnel on top of being the head football coach was very demanding for me. And so, it was very rewarding. But as far as fun, there at the University of Miami, that's the most fun I ever had. We were so good, as you know. We had so many talented players, and we had a national schedule. Back then, nowadays every game's on television. Back then, there was a couple of regional games on television, and there was one national game. And because we were an independent and we played a national schedule every week or every other week, we're playing Oklahoma, Florida State, Michigan, South Carolina, Notre Dame, on and on. And because of that schedule, we were on national television about every other week. And not only were we on national television, but we were beating all those teams, as you know. and and so, winning those games in front of the entire country allowed us to recruit some great players. And because we had so many great players, we were able to win a lot of games. It was a lot of fun.
Coach, I'll say this to you, and I got asked this question the other day about Miami and about college recruiting and NIL and all this. And I told people, I go, if you were under the assumption that you had a 4-year scholarship with Coach Johnson, I said, that guy you see on TV, I keep reminding people, that ain't the guy that I remember when we were – the guy now is really a kind guy. I go, that guy that I played with, man, he was in – I used to I remember, Coach, you doing this. You go, hey, Sileo, remember, when I'm not on your ass, that's when you need to worry. It's when I'm not in your ass. And I'm like, oh, okay. But Coach, to me, it was like, I mean, you were very demanding because it was so – it just created excellence. And everywhere you went, did that kind of wear you out at particular places? Because if you look at your career, Coach, they're like 5-year intervals. To where you're in college, you were at the Cowboys, and even with the Dolphins too, you tried to turn that thing around, but it was kind of a lot of internal things fighting you, the owner, the quarterback, all of that. Did that wear you out quicker because you were so demanding, and also all the things that you had to be responsible for?
It was taxing. I think the biggest thing, Dan, is that it took a toll on my personal life as far as with my family. And in fact, that's the reason why I left the Dolphins. We went to playoffs 3 straight years, won a couple of playoff games, but we didn't win a Super Bowl, and so that was a disappointment. But my mother passed away, there toward the end of the season, and Wayne Hines allowed me to take his plane and fly to the funeral. And I realized right then and there I'd missed so much as far as my family. And so that's why I retired, from the Dolphins. And there with Fox NFL Sunday, I had plenty of off season, plenty of time, plenty of laughs. So it was a different world for me. And obviously my personality changed. I didn't have to be quite as demanding as what I was when I was there at Miami. And you look at it, the one thing, of course, I'm proud of, winning the national championship and all the games, especially the games, our record against ranked teams. But, the thing that I'm really proud of is that when I first went there, the graduation rate for the football players was just barely over 50%. And we, as we put in academic counseling, a mandatory study hall. I even had the coaches go to the classroom to make sure that they were going to class. It was mandatory class attendance.
We had to get up in the morning and go to breakfast to make sure we checked in so that we went to class. Right.
And if they didn't do it, they were running it with those 110s at 6 o'clock in the morning. And so the graduation rate with the academic counselors and, the academic support system, went up to 90% when I left, and it stayed right at 90% ever since I left because of the academic support system. So our players got their degrees, and I was very, very proud of that.
Coach, let me ask you, we're based in Philadelphia, so let me ask you about the Eagles and what Howie Roseman has done and what Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts. I mean, were you surprised on how the Eagles took them out as quick as they did, especially Steve Spagnuolo, or were you not shocked?
I picked Philadelphia to win because, in fact, I said on Fox NFL Sunday, I said, by far they're the most talented team. I said, the only advantage that Kansas City had over Philadelphia was the quarterback, because Mahomes is the best I've ever seen. And then Andy Reid, of course, with his record. And I said, other than that, Philadelphia is a better football team in all areas. And, they're just such a talented team. That defensive front, the offensive and defensive lines both dominated, and Howie's done just a great job of bringing in players. And, a lot of teams down in the league, they can't figure out the cap. They can't figure out how to keep players. They can't figure out how to get a free agent. Well, Howie's figured it out because they bring in a lot of talent.
Coach, do you see in Jalen Carter a little bit of Jerome Brown? I've never compared a player to Jerome, but I think he's a little bigger. Jerome was about 6'2.5". This guy's about 6'4.5". He's got great feet, coach. He's got great hands. He's got great tenacity. He plays that 3 technique as good as any tackle in the league. And, he takes on the double teams. Clint Hurt's up there, and, I know Clint very well. And so he's like a former Hurricane, and I have conversations with him, and he goes, he's a lot like Jerome. He's got feet like Cortez. Do you see it too, Coach, a little bit?
Yeah, I tell you, I raved about him just watching him getting ready for that Super Bowl. He is such a talented individual. They double team him about 60% of the time, and I think with them double teaming him 60% of the time, one reason why Bond ended up being an all-pro linebacker, because people are not able to get off on the blocks and block the linebacker. That's why they were able to rush the passer so well, from the outside, because of so many double teams. And then when you single blocked him or tried to single block him, you just can't do it. And his talent, would rival, Jerome's talent. When you've got a dominating defensive line like that, and of course we were fortunate, Dan, as you know, and you were part of it, the defensive line that we had at Miami, and all of those guys weren't highly sought after.
Right.
You look at it, Jimmy Jones did not have a scholarship offer coming out of high school. We recruited him, signed him with him not even playing his senior year in high school. And then I took Russell Maryland. Russell had one scholarship offer. Then I got Cortez Kennedy. I remember I had Russell, Russell came in probably about 280, and Cortez about the same, maybe a little bit more. And I had them out there every morning at 6 o'clock running those 110s to make sure they lost a little weight. And of course, Cortez ended up being a Hall of Fame player, and Russell ended up being all pro and Outland Trophy winner. So we had a dominating defensive line that you were part of.
Coach, it's funny that when they were honoring you, I'm very good friends now with The Rock, and he comes on my program all the time now. And there he was mentioning the D lineman. He goes, Dan Sileo, and I almost fell off my chair. And I'm like, hang on here now. And there's Coach. He's sitting there and he's listening to it. And I got a text message from Ed Ogeron, and my phone blew up all over. And I've actually posted that on my Twitter page with Rock saying that. And Ogeron goes like this: you and Jerome set the standard, man. It was you and him that set the standard for people after. And Butch even said it, and Dave was on Friday. And I was really, hey, Coach, it was really awesome to be part of that. I mean, it was one of the greatest times outside of my current family now. It was one of the greatest times of my entire life being around you. And it was so awesome. And Michael Irvin and I just talk about it. It was Camelot back then. We lost one regular season game in 3 years there. So I don't know what else to say, right?
Well, actually, when The Rock came on Fox NFL Sunday and told me the story about how he watched University of Miami, he had some problems in high school, and they wanted to straighten him out, and he said, well, okay, I'm going to make a commitment. I'm going to go to University of Miami. I want to play for Jimmy Johnson. And then I left and went to Dallas, and he said, well, I made that commitment before you went to Dallas, and so I'm going to hold on to that commitment to go to University of Miami. But that was actually a surprise to me when The Rock said that. Really kind of an emotional time. But he was very complimentary. And of course, back then, like I said, we were on national television every other week. So every good player in the country wanted to go play at the U.
Absolutely, Coach. And what people always said, how come you didn't want to come out? I go, we had Cortez Kennedy and Russell Maryland and Jimmy Jones and all these guys behind you. You didn't ever wanted to be Lou Gehrig. I mean, because we had so many great players there. Coach, couple last questions here for you. I've made this comment. Look, I'm friends with the Jones family. Steven comes on a lot. I really like them. But, Coach, of all the people they've never been able to replace, it's been you. I know you've seen my tweet numerous times on that. You've been able to replace, well, to some extent, Troy. You've got good running backs. You went out and got wide receivers. But, Coach, I mean, he does a great job at evaluating and raising the value of the Cowboys, the visibility of it, the drafting. They're not awful in drafting. But what's the one different thing that you think that gets in the Cowboys' way? Coach, in 29 years, they've won 4 playoff games. I mean, they haven't been to an NFC title game in 30 years. What's the difference?
Well, first of all, let me just say this. Will McClay, their personnel director, has done a tremendous job. He's had offers to be a general manager at various NFL teams and turned them down. And in fact, just signed an extension to stay with the Cowboys for quite some time. He really is responsible for a lot of the personnel moves. I think with the Dallas Cowboys, it's a very difficult place to coach in that everybody in the country is patting you on the back, telling you how great you are. And sometimes you get a little bit infected about, hey, I am pretty good. And I think it takes away from the work ethic of some of the players. They're thinking they're pretty good and they don't have to go out there and work and earn it. They don't have championship rings on their finger, but they act like they do have a championship ring on their finger. And I think because of the visibility and because everybody's always talking about the Cowboys and how great they are, and then next thing you know, they lose a game and it's the end of the world. But because of the visibility, I think it's a difficult place to coach. A lot of things going on, a lot of distractions other than just football.
Last one here for you, Coach. Correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, you've seen some of the best players of all time. My assessment of Micah Parsons is exactly what you just said. We get Tony Casillas on here every now and then, and I'm just like, when I watch him play against Lane Johnson or I watch him have to play the run, and he just seems to play sometimes in spots. It's one thing to take time off, but he wants to rush the passer. That's fine. I get it. But you've got to be a complete ball player. I remember in our time, Coach, Pat Swilling, Derek Thomas, those guys were ball hawks. I mean, they ran to the ball. They played the run. Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks. I just don't see it. If that were you, would you re-sign him? Or would you have – because I guarantee you he wouldn't play that way for you the way he plays right now in Dallas.
I think there are two things there, Dan. I think with Micah Parsons, he is an extremely talented player. He is a player that can make a difference in a game that it would be a very difficult decision for me as far as, making a trade and trying to get a lot of picks for him because he can win a football game by himself. Now, the only thing is, I think defensively, they've got to have a scheme that protects him and allows him to make plays. If you just line him up at defensive end, then people are going to take advantage of that because he's an undersized defensive end. You got to use him a little bit like we did Jason Taylor, who was a Hall of Fame player, 245 pounds at defensive end for us. You got to move him around. You got to do some different things. Now, Dan Quinn did that. Dan Quinn did an outstanding job of using Parsons, rushing in the middle, left side, right side, move him around, do some different things as far as putting pressure on the passer and making big plays in the backfield. But as far as him playing right there at one spot, defensive end, he's too undersized to do that, but he is a great player.
Okay, so I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of bridge tournaments.
I do play international bridge on a lot of days.
So it's going to be fishing, bridge with Rhonda. You guys will be hosting people down like Belichick and all of that. And hey, Coach, by the way, he's coaching at UNC.
I know.
Things go sideways a little bit for our boy Mario.
He was down here a few months ago, and then we do visit on occasion. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Of course, he's going up against the U, so I'm going to be torn right there. But I still do the stock market, and the only thing is, at my age, I'm doing more treasury bills than I am stocks. But everything's going well for me, Dan, and I appreciate everything.
Thank you so much, Coach. I thank you for your time. Thank you for the things you've done for all of us. And God bless you, Coach, in your retirement. I know it's going to be a great one. And a new chapter in your life will probably be, and I know not probably, will be as successful as everything you've ever touched and everything you've ever done. Now, wait, one last one, Coach. National title ring as a player, national title ring as a college coach, Super Bowl championship ring. Which ring do you love the most? Which ring means the most to you?
Oh, I don't wear any of them. I got the Pro Hall of Fame ring, the College Hall of Fame ring. That University of Miami ring is a pretty ring. I got that Marquise diamond right in the middle that I had to pay for myself because the college didn't get it. Nowadays, I don't wear a whole lot of rings because I'm out there fishing. The rings are in the safe.
The three-ring boat is out at sea all the time now. Coach, thank you so much for your time. Thank you again. I promise you I will not harass you until September. Thank you.
I'll talk to you during the football season.
You got it. Thank you, Coach.
All right, Dan.
That's Jimmy Johnson there. Love the coach, man. Absolutely awesome being around him. It was so much fun. I'm sorry. Hey, by the way, I saw some super chats. I was in a conversation, so hopefully you guys don't get pissed off. I'll tell you what I'll do. Bob, I think I saw you send something. So what I'll do is I will send a text message to Coach Johnson, and I'll ask. So some of these super chats that we missed here, Xander. By the way, don't forget Tony Dungy is going to be with us also at 4:30. Hey, Sills, with all of our free agent losses this year, can you ask Coach Johnson? I will text him right now what he considers a reasonable percentage of player turnover year to year. I know the cap is a big part of turnover. And Bob, by the way, Jimmy didn't have to deal with turnover or the cap, I should say, back in the day when he was building the Cowboys. So I will ask him that. I promise you I will get a response to that too. So again, Xander, if we have any more supers here during the interview, Jimmy and Pete Carroll are legends, two of the best player coaches of all time. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that Switzer, Pete Carroll, Jimmy Johnson, and I think Paul Brown are the only coaches in NFL history to win a national championship and also a world championship in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. Bob, no worries. I will definitely going to text him when I take a timeout and when I take a break here too. So we will definitely get that. I appreciate you guys sending the super chats. Guys, I'll say one more time to you. When you played for him, there was no failure. Failure was not an option. It just wasn't. It was a time in my life where every time I stepped on the field, and this is what you guys are talking about culture with the Eagles right now. Like here, let me give you a for instance. Let's take Jalen Carter. I've experienced to some extent because now he's won a Super Bowl. I never did. But when I stepped on the field, when I was around him, I never thought we'd lose. No matter what. The same things he did at Miami are the same things he did with the Cowboys. And as you heard him say, I was proud to be one of his centerpieces at the University of Miami. And my failure, I'll tell you this, I wish to God that I had been drafted by him because my career would have turned out different. He would have used me different. I got sick in Dallas. I told you guys some of the story. I almost died. I caught meningitis. It was a bad, it just wasn't meant to be. I was supposed to make that team. I was supposed to be on that Dallas Cowboy team. My wife will tell you numerous times I talked myself off it. Then I ended up getting sick. But being around him was one of the best times in my life. I'll tell you a funny story. This is how he coached us and how he coached tough people. I'll never forget. I've told some of you this. We used to stay at this place called the Shula Hotel. And I didn't have a blanket. I just didn't bring it down with me from Connecticut. I didn't have toiletries. I didn't have anything. I didn't have hand towels, no towels or nothing. And I remember I took them from the Shula Hotel. They called up Jimmy and my trainer, Kevin O'Neill. I said, somebody stole the comforter, sheets and everything. And I did. So that next morning of practice, I walk out. Kevin O'Neill comes and gets me, and Jimmy, people thought I was going to get thrown off the team. I would have if I didn't answer it this way. Jimmy goes, did you take that comforter? Did you take those towels? Did you take all those things? That's the team hotel. I said, yeah, I did. He goes, why? I go, because I didn't have a comforter. I don't have any towels, and I don't have any pillows. He goes, for God's sakes. And I just don't. Get back. Go back. The next day, after practice, I show up. There's 3 pillows. There's a comforter. There's towels. There's toiletries. There's toilet paper. There's plates and everything on my bed. And I was like, holy shit. I knew where it came from. So I go and see him right before practice. I go, hey, coach. He goes, what? I said, hey, he goes, for what? Because, again, that shit's illegal. You can't do that. Back then it was. And I go, thanks, coach. I didn't, he goes, don't take me for anything. I don't know what you're talking about. I said, all right. So as I was turning and walked away, he goes, don't do that shit again. Without telling me, you need something, let me know. People forget that guy, the impact that he had in all of our lives was way beyond football. Okay? Way beyond football. Every single guy that played for him, that excelled for him, he treated like that. That's why he won. He had personal relationships with every player that was on his team. Because when things went sideways, and it did, we were all together. That's why we won. That's why we hated everyone. All I cared about was Jimmy. That's why we fought for him. I mean, I enjoyed, so that's why I just posted something for the fishing tournament for the University of Miami. That place I owe. It saved my life. And about 100 other guys' lives. The guy saved my life. Probably prison or dead. I was a crazy dude. That guy saved my life. I would leave there an All-American and drafted. Number 56th overall. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better ending. Crazy. That's why that guy means that much to me. Okay? That's why we killed for the guy when we played. Sills, the lack of quality depth makes failure a greater possibility. If you get beat or take a play off, you could get garroted and never see the field again. Lack of depth makes that harder. That's where the Eagles are. That's correct, Bob. Okay? Seals, if you don't get thrown out of Maryland, you would never have made it to Miami. That's perspective. Denny, I would never have left Maryland if I didn't get thrown out. No way. I love that place. I did. I would never have transferred if things worked out differently there. I played as a freshman. I got a championship ring, a conference championship ring as a freshman, 19-year-old kid. I would never have left if things didn't go sideways. And there were very few places. You know the 2 schools that wanted to give me a chance? Oklahoma, Barry Switzer, and Jimmy Johnson. Those were the 2 scholarships that I got. Barry let me, I initially signed with Oklahoma. I was going to be a Sooner. I had signed. I showed you my scholarship. I posted my scholarship at Dan Sileo show on X. I had a scholarship to go to Oklahoma. I was going to go to OU. I had taken a trip. I was going to OU after Maryland.